Welcome to Global Truth with Dr. Nasir Baig. Imagine waking up to a world where the very structure built to outlast us are simply losing their shape. Right now, across the European continent, this isn't a dystopian film plot. It is the reality of a summer that has rewritten every rule of meteorology. We are witnessing an unprecedented historic heat wave that isn't just breaking records, it is physically reshaping the landscape. Step onto the streets of London, Paris, or Madrid, and the physical world feels unstable. The infrastructure of the Western world was built for a climate that no longer exists. The roads, asphalt, is a complex mix, and at extreme temperatures, it transitions from a solid to a vicious liquid. Across Western and Central Europe, highways are bleeding oil, forcing authorities to dump sand on main arterial roads just to give car tires something to grip. The streets, traffic lights composed of standard industrial plastics, are warped and dripping under the concentrated heat radiating from dense concrete city streets. The daily objects, metal shopping carts left in unshaded supermarket parking lots are literally too hot to touch, while their plastic handles bubble. Car dashboards are warping behind windshields that act like giant magnifying glasses, turning vehicle interiors into literal ovens. From the United Kingdom down to the Balkan Peninsula, nations are under unprecedented red alerts. This isn't just summer weather, it is planetary system running a dangerously high fever. Millions of people are experiencing tropical nights where the temperature never drops below 20 or even 30 degrees Celsius, denying the human body the vital cooling window it needs to recover from heat stress. But to understand why the ground beneath Europe is cooking, we have to look thousands of miles away to the open waters of the Pacific Ocean. We have to look at the monster driving this global spike, the arrival of a Super El Niño. To understand a Super El Niño, we first have to understand the basic rhythm of our planet's largest ocean. Normally, strong trade winds blow west across the Pacific Ocean, pushing warm surface water from the Americas towards Asia. To replace that warm water, cold water rises up from the deep ocean off the coast of South America. We call this normal state. But every few years, those trade winds weaken. Sometimes they even reverse. When they weaken, that massive buildup of warm water stays put or sloshes backward, blanketing the eastern Pacific Ocean. This shift is El Niño, a naturally occurring climate pattern. But what happens when you take a strong natural El Niño and inject it into an atmosphere already supercharged by over a century of greenhouse gas emissions? You get a Super El Niño. When scientists use that term, Super El Niño, they are talking about ocean surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific spiking significantly above the historical average. The sheer volume of thermal energy released into the atmosphere from this vast expanse of hot ocean alters the global jet stream, the high altitude rivers of wind that dictate where storms go and where high pressure gets locked in. Think of the global atmosphere like a massive interconnected fabric. When a Super El Niño creates a massive thermal swell in the Pacific, it yanks the fabric. On the other side of the world, over Europe, that tug distorts the jet stream. It slows down, buckles, and traps massive stagnant domes of high pressure air. This summer, that trapped air didn't just stay stagnant. It acted like a giant pump, pulling scorching, bone-dry air directly from Saharan desert straight up into the heart of Europe. The Super El Niño didn't create the Europe heat wave out of thin air, but it acted as a massive planetary amplifier, pouring fuel onto a fire that climate change had already lit. Now, this has taken a toll on the continent. The physical melting of plastic and asphalt is highly visible, but the invisible toll of this heat wave is far more devastating. First, consider the human cost. Healthcare systems across France, Italy, and Spain are buckling under pressure. Extreme heat causes severe heat stress, heat strokes, and places an immense burden on the cardiovascular system. When the air temperature rivals the human body temperature, cooling down via sweat becomes incredibly difficult. Already, health organizations have recorded thousands of excess deaths across the continent, particularly among elderly populations and outdoor workers. Second, look at the natural and economic infrastructure, the water crises, major rivers, the economic lifebloods of European shipping and cooling systems are drying up or warming to the levels that threaten aquatic ecosystems. The wildfires, combined with prolonged drought, the landscape has become a tinderbox. Wildfires are tearing through forested regions in Portugal, Spain, and in Balkans, forcing mass evacuations and filling the skies with thick toxic smoke. And then the grid. Air conditioning demands are pushing electrical grids to their absolute breaking point. But power plants struggle because the river water they use for cooling is simply too hot to safely discharge back into nature. And then comes the question, how long will this last? When does it end? According to the current meteorological models, this isn't a 3-day spell. It's a structural seasonal shift because the Super El Niño is projected to maintain its peak intensity through the coming months. These high-pressure heat domes are incredibly stubborn. While local weather fronts will bring temporary localized relief, often in the form of violent destructive thunderstorms and hail, the underlying baseline of extreme warmth is expected to persist throughout the rest of the summer months. We are looking at a prolonged battle against the thermostat that will last well into late August. Climate scientists are giving us a blunt reality check because Europe is warming at roughly twice the global average. The summers we used to consider historically extreme are rapidly becoming the standard baseline for the future. Now comes the question, what is the blueprint for survival? The precautionary measures. When the world around you is quite literally at a boiling point, survival depends on changing how we live, build, and behave. Protecting ourselves requires a multi-layered approach, from immediate personal adjustments to massive societal shifts. Immediate personal protection on an individual level. Managing extreme heat requires understanding biology. Hydration over everything. Drink water before you feel thirsty. When you sweat, you don't just lose water, you lose essential minerals. Incorporate electrolytes to prevent heat, cramping, and exhaustion. Then is the danger of the sun hours. Total confinement or structural adjustment of the day is necessary. Avoid outdoor activity completely between 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. when the solar radiation is most intense. Recognize the signs. Heat exhaustion looks like heavy sweating, a rapid pulse, dizziness, or nausea. The moment it turns into heat stroke, marked by a lack of sweat, confusion, or fainting, it becomes a life-threatening medical emergency. The white bulb reality. If your home does not have air conditioning, utilizing fans alone when room temperatures exceed 35 degrees Celsius can actually accelerate dehydration by blowing air that is hotter than your skin temperature. Instead, look to cooling centers or utilize damp towels on the body to force evaporative cooling. Then we have to carry out certain structural and urban adaptations because individual action isn't enough when the infrastructure itself is melting. Cities have to be retrofitted for survival. Rethinking materials. We must move away from standard asphalt and dark zinc roofing that absorbs and stores heat. Cities are beginning to mandate cool roofs, highly reflective white coating, and specialized permeable pavements that don't turn urban spaces into thermal traps. The power of green infrastructure. Planting urban forests, creating pocket parks, and installing green roofs aren't just aesthetic choices, they're survival tools. Shaded areas with the vegetation can lower surrounding street temperature by up to 4 degrees Celsius compared to bare concrete. Altering the workday. Europe is beginning to see a structural shift in labor. Outdoor construction, agricultural work, and public service are shifting away from midday hours entirely, moving towards early morning or late evening to protect human capital. Well, in the end, I must say that this summer, Europe is a living canvas, illustrating a profound planetary truth. The melting roads and dripping traffic signals are structural warning signs. They're physical evidence that humanity is trying to operate a modern civilization using a blueprint design for a climate that no longer exists. The Super El Niño has shown us how quickly global systems can amplify risk, but it also serves as an undeniable catalyst. We can no longer treat extreme heat as a rare passing emergency. It is a structural reality. The solutions are right in front of us. Accelerating the transition away from fossil fuel, redesigning our cities to breathe, protecting our most vulnerable populations, and treating early weather warnings not as headlines, but as instructions for survival. The planet is speaking to us in the language of heat. It's time we finally listen, adapt, and change the way we live on this earth. Take good care of yourself.